Jeez. Okay, Banjo downstairs. Did you want to? Yeah, because my voice echoes.
In a commemorative ceremony, but this year with COVID, that wasn't possible. So we're all working really hard in our workplaces to do better, to come to work fully present and to know our limitations and to speak out when changes need to be made. This is necessary if we want to create a safer workspace. So we may not have been able to collectively gather together, but we can take a moment just to remember tonight. We have felt the pain as a community of losing one of our own, and we've also held others up and been there for them as well when they lost somebody. So I'd like to just take a moment of silence to remember those we lost, those who went to work expecting to come home but were not fortunate enough to do so. And also let's remember the frontline workers who also have lost their lives during this COVID epidemic. So we can just take a moment. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order and are there any additions to the agenda? And seeing none, if I can have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, please. Moved by Councillor Barron, seconded by Councillor Downey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. So petitions and delegations. Tonight we have two. So the first one will be the OrcaFest committee to present on the outcome of the 2019 OrcaFest event and the proposed 2020 event. Jessica, is it just you, Jessica, or Ashley and the rest of the crew as well? Oh, there you are.
They're on their way in.
Okay. All right, we'll wait for you. Anytime you're ready, you may go ahead.
Oh, Sequoia as well.
You have to ask them.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, we can't see who's all on here, so we just are assuming we're here.
Okay, is Sequoia part of your group?
Yeah,
Okay, she's coming in.
and Jaylene. And
Oh,
Ashley.
okay.
So
Ashley's here.
4.
There we go.
Do we have to be seen?
Oh, there we are. There you are.
I don't know how to use this, guys, so bear with me.
That was confusing.
Do I have everybody? There's Sequoia.
Yay! There's Jess.
And there's Julie. Okay, go ahead, ladies.
Except all of us, except Sarah, really.
Yeah.
Impressive.
This is us. Okay, hi everybody. So first we'll go quickly over how 2019 went. Basically, I did quickly send a budget to Laura. I don't know if you guys have it or received it, probably not, because I was a little behind on that. We have over $5,000 left over again. This is because we had 2 of our major events cancel on us last minute. The Doco train, the train that's usually down on the water, he broke his leg and he had to cancel and wasn't able to come. So that was $1,900. And then the photo booth had to cancel last minute, and that's another $1,500. So we would have actually been in trouble had they not canceled, because we would have come in over our budget. So sponsored was $6,800. We had $6,300 left over from 2018, and we made around $2,000 with vendors and our little pancake breakfast and stuff. So our overall cost was $9,993.19. Our funds was $15,518, leaving us with $5,524. We also, Jaylene was able to get us a really good deal on our porta potties. So instead of that costing us the $3,000 that we came to you guys with, it actually cost us $1,407. So that was awesome. That was a huge part of our budget. So yeah, we ended up with money left over again out of our control. We would have, of course, put that towards this year, but now that we've gone over that, we need to talk to you guys about what we do.
Hey, so are you looking to us, or are you looking to tell us what's going to happen? Or
Well,
isn't?
Basically, from what I understand with everything going on, this isn't an event we can hold even if we wanted to.
Yeah, no, it's going to have to be unfortunately canceled due to Bonnie Henry's recommendations and just the sort of Canadian government in general. It's ideal that there would be no festivals of this kind in 2020.
Mhm. Council, did you want to ask the committee any questions or make any comments? Go ahead, Councilor Mitchell.
Just like to say you guys do a phenomenal job. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, very difficult circumstances this year, and it's unfortunate all around. Councilor Downey?
Just to echo that, you guys have done a fabulous job however, it's been 4 or 5 years you guys have been at this now. It's been a length of time.
It was 5.
5, yeah. That's wrong. But, it'll be disappointing not to have it because it's such a great community feel that we have when everybody gathers. But as you've said, I don't know how you can hold this event and still and keep a distance. That's just not what it's about. So
Yeah, it's impossible to do it with the sort of government recommendations at this point.
right.
And it's too much planning to do for the realistic potential of it being canceled. So
Yeah. Appreciate all your efforts in the past and even joining us this evening. Thank you.
Basically, Jessica and I were talking earlier about it, and I mean, because we are an awesome group of ladies, if things changed come July, we could, with our leftover funds, put on a Masterfest.
oh, we could.
So I think as of right now, of course, we would say it is canceled. But I'm always willing to pull a miracle out of somewhere if I'm allowed. And that could literally be with the funds we have left over. We wouldn't have to ask businesses who are already going to be struggling. We could pull off a very small get together if we're allowed, right? So as of right now, I guess we would announce and say that yes, we're canceled due to further notice.
The ideas too, or that have been tossed around too, is like the parades that have been happening. Even if we know what we're limited and what is just best for the community in general, whether it's government advised or not, what's the best for us. A parade is pretty quick and easy, and they've been happening, and it's celebrating things. So it'd be great to do anything kind of like that, just to honor that event that has been going for however long it's been going, just to, give it kind of that little thought and bring a smile to, I'm sure, a lot of kids' faces.
Not just kids too. I think from being a past organizer myself, I know how much work it takes. And for somebody who had to be on it at the time we had to let it go, I know I was very appreciative for all of you ladies stepping up to take over. And I just echo everybody else's. You've done a wonderful job. And yeah, I think if there's something we can do to make the community happy within the parameters given to us by the government, that'd be great. But we certainly understand why it has to be set aside. So thank you very much. Any other go ahead, Councillor Downey.
Just a quick, I love the idea, the thought that perhaps a parade could go ahead. I was out on the street when the sunset one went by on Friday, and it was quite emotional. And I thought it's a decorated school bus, and it got me. It's just so, there's a lot of validity in your statement. I mean, maybe it is only a parade, but it's more than that, really, for the times we're in. So thanks for the thought, and I'm going to hope it is doable. See what can get around to do that.
Thanks. If there are, are there any other questions? Okay, great. Thanks very much, ladies, for coming tonight and speaking with us. We wish you all the best, and yeah, we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Goodbye. And if you can
Bye.
get Bonnie Henry, we'll be behind you.
Okay, so next I'll get Pete to bring in Chan Nowsed and Boats to present our 2019 draft financial statements, please. I hope I'm saying that right.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Nicole Lansdowne from Chan Nowsed Boats, and I'll be presenting the financial statements for the 2019 audit of the town of Fort McNeil. I'll just put up the statements and share my screen with you all. There we go. So we've got the statements up. So I'll just jump right into the financial statements. Here we have the management report. This states that management is taking ownership of the financial statements and that we were engaged to express an opinion on them. The next page is the independent auditor's report. The second paragraph under the opinion section states that we believe the financial statements present fairly in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So this is a clean audit opinion. Following that, we have the responsibilities of management as well as the auditor's responsibilities in the audit report. And the next page here is Statement A, which is the statement of financial position. So we'll just go through each line item and go over the variances year over year. So starting with cash increased by 1.4 million since 2018. This was due to the 2019 surplus of 670,000. And an increase in deferred revenue of 175,000. The town this year had also received a payment from North Island Community Forest LP in 2019 for 708,000. Portfolio investments increased by 24,000 this year, which was consistent with last year's balance, and accounts receivable decreased by 287,000 this year, which was mostly related to the grant receivables. So at the end of 2018, the government grant receivables were higher due to different ongoing projects, such as the water project, which was finished mid-2019. The investment in government business enterprises relates to the town's investment in North Island Community Forest Limited and North Island Community Forest Limited Partnership. So the town holds a third of the interest in the corporation and the LP. And the reason why there was an increase of 270,000 this year was because the LP had significantly higher net income, which increased the allocation of the earnings to the town. Onto the liabilities, we have accounts payable first, and that decreased by 42,000 this year. This was mostly related to having a lot of construction projects going on at the end of 2018. So there's a higher payable relating to construction holdbacks and invoices for work. Deferred revenue increased this year, mostly as a result of the Community Works Fund grant, which is the gas tax money from UBCM. Most of the money was deferred, but 136,000 was used to pay the principal and interest on water debt servicing. Last year, all of the Community Works Fund grants was spent and taken into revenue. Lastly is the long-term debt, and this decreased by 88,000 in 2019 This is in line with our expectation, given that there was $64,000 in payments of principal and $23,000 in the actuarial adjustment. The non-financial assets include capital assets and prepaid expenses. So capital assets decreased by almost $600,000 this year. There was $623,000 in additions, and this was offset by $1.2 million in amortization. Lastly, the prepaids decreased by $38,000. This is partially due to the prepayment of the Crown lease for the harbor that was made in 2018 for $13,000. And there was also $20,000 last year in a prepayment for liability insurance for municipal insurance. Both of these items were not prepaid for in 2018, and we confirmed that both were paid after year end. So that wraps up the statement of financial position. The next page is Statement B, which is the statement of operations. So total revenues this year was $4.9 million. That's an increase of $86,000 from last year. Big changes in the year included the interest and investment income that increased by $957,000. And this was related to the North Island Community Forest LP having significantly higher revenue this year. And that was offset by the decrease in transfers from government of $873,000. In 2018, there was a grant of almost $800,000 that was received from the province for the water distribution replacement upgrade. So this was the project that was finished in the middle of 2019, and there was no significant capital projects outstanding at the end of 2019. Expenses in the year were $4.2 million, up from $4 million in 2018. The increase was mostly related to the major operational projects. So these are specific projects that are budgeted for annually, and it depends year over year on the needs of the town. So this would be any general repairs and maintenance, such as replacement of shop doors, alarm system upgrades, painting and flooring at the community hall, and railing at the harbor were a few of the items that were noted in the year. Public works expenditures increased by $50,000 due to street lighting repairs, and wages increased due to the QP agreements. And this was offset by the protection services. In 2018, the fire department was deployed to help with the Zabalas wildfires, which resulted in $55,000 in wages in 2018. Thankfully, there were no similar wildfires in 2019, so wages were down. This resulted in a surplus of $704,000 in 2019, which is down slightly from 2018 surplus by $113,000. On the next page is Statement C, which is the statement of cash flows. So you can see the breakdown of how cash was used for operating activities, finance activities, and capital transactions in the year. The following page is the statement of changes in net financial assets, which are the prepaid expenses and the tangible capital assets. Similar to last year, the town is in a net financial asset position, which means that it has extra resources that can be used for future operations and meeting their liabilities and any debt obligations. The next page is Statement E, which is the statement of segmented information. So here's a further breakdown of the statement of operations. The revenue and expenditures have been broken down into different categories, so you can see where money was generated and where it was spent. The next page is the statement of tangible capital assets, so you can see where the additions were in the year as well as the amortization. And the last statement is Statement G on page 10. So this is the statement of government grants, and here it gives more detail on the types of federal and provincial funding that were received in 2019 and 2018. Following this are the notes to the financial statements. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these as we've covered a lot of it going through the statements, but I'd like to highlight a few important notes. So note 4 on page 14. here is the investment in government business enterprises. So here we've taken a few key pieces of financial information from the LP's financial statements, and that continues on to page 15, so you can see that here. The town uses a modified equity pickup to pick up its investment in the LP. So the town owns a third of the LP, and a third of the income that the LP earns is recorded as income in the town. So the LP reports under accounting standards for private enterprises, which is also known as ASPE. Because they are a government business enterprise, they should be reporting under International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, but any differences between ASPE and IFRS would be insignificant, and that's been noted here in this note. On page 23, there's another note to highlight, which is the prior period adjustments. Here we are. So in 2018, there was some adjustments that were noted by management that should have been made that related to the fire department, vacation, sick leave, banked hours, mortgage, and long-term debt. So the impact of these are noted in this table here on what was reported in 2018's financial statements and how they've been adjusted and restated in the 2019 financial statements. Lastly, on page 24 is a subsequent events note. So all of the audits and reviews that we are working on currently have a subsequent event note for the COVID-19 pandemic. So this note describes the extent of the impact from COVID is not yet known, but as a result, it's anticipated that there will be lower collection of property taxes, and that the swimming pool will not be open in 2020, and tourism will likely be down in the area, which could result in lower harbor revenues in the year. In addition to the COVID note, the North Island Community Forest LP informed the town on April 24th that the town will be receiving a disbursement of $90,000 shortly, and this disbursement from the LP will have a material impact on the town's investment in government business enterprises and in cash for the 2020 fiscal year. So that wraps up our presentation on the financial statements. At this time, I'd like to ask if there are any questions.
Hey, Council, did you have any questions for Nicole? No? Okay, so seeing none, thank you very much for taking the time to come and present tonight, Nicole. Good job by you and your associates. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll move on to adoption of the minutes. And are there any corrections to be made to the minutes of April 14th? And seeing none, can I have a motion to accept them as presented then, please? Councillor Barron, seconder, Councillor Mitchell. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Great. Okay, item 5A, letter from the Village of Hazelton, asking for support of their resolution to UBCM. Asking in particular that communities under 10,000 in BC should be eligible to apply for the gaming grant program. So move for discussion. Councillor Barron, seconder. Councillor Downey. What's your pleasure, Council? Go ahead, Councillor Downey.
I can appreciate where the community of Hazelton is coming from. However, I do know that these gaming grants do go to many nonprofit organizations within our town and within our region. So while it's admirable to ask for that and there would be a possible benefit, at the same time, we will also be taking funds away from other organizations. So I don't personally I don't feel I can support this request. Unless there's some other information that I'm missing, and I'm open to hearing it for sure.
I did a bit of research this afternoon, and yeah, it is not available to municipalities. It's only available to nonprofits, and I'm thinking along the same lines. I know I've been to other conferences where they have the table and they have their little thing set up, and it lists all of the communities. And I know that there are nonprofits in our community that do receive this. So go ahead, Councillor Mitchell.
I have to agree with Councillor Downey. We get a significant whack of money. We get the gas tax credit and so on. We get benefits that nonprofits don't have the option of getting, and I think we're okay. I don't think we need to get involved in chasing the government for another grab.
Okay. Any other comments? And so I see that there's no appetite then to support it. So we'll move along. Did I gauge that right? Just double checking. It's hard on this platform. So the next one is item 5B. We've got a copy of a letter from the District of Saanich to the Honorable Selena Robinson. And they are requesting financial hardship property tax deferment program be reinstated. I can tell you that just for a little bit of background before we discuss this, on the call there were many municipalities, not many, a few municipalities who did say that they would support this, but it was noted by Minister Robinson that 70% of the people are already captured under this present tax deferment ability, under the present one. So move for discussion. Councillor Barron, seconder. Councillor Downing. Okay, comments to the letter? So, Councillor Downey, go ahead.
I don't, sorry, my camera's moving. I don't have a problem supporting this one because I do realize there are some gaps. This was something that came into effect for the years 2009 and 2010. And right now the deferment reaches those 55 and over, and it also captures households that are supporting children. And at this, so there is, as you say, there's a 30%, but perhaps for that 30%, it does make a difference. So I would support this request.
Any other comments? Do you want to make a motion then, Councillor Downey?
I would move that we submit a letter to Minister Robinson making the same request. Okay, and a seconder for that motion?
Councillor Barron. Okay, any further discussion?
For clarity on the motion is that we would petition Minister Robinson to reinstate the financial hardship property tax deferment program that was utilized for the years 2009 and 2010.
Sorry, just because we'll follow the same protocol we did last time, if Pete, you, our CAO, wouldn't mind putting that on the screen just to make sure that we've captured that correctly, please.
Submit a letter to Minister Robinson to petition reinstatement of the financial
property tax deferment
program.
Financial hardship property tax.
Reinstatement of the financial
Hardship.
Thank you. That's what I'm missing.
Hardship property tax. Next.
And then you said something about that was instituted in 2019 and 2010?
That was similar to, that was utilized in the years 2009 and 2010. Thank you.
Are you comfortable that that was captured? Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and a seconder for that motion?
No, I had a question, Gabby.
Okay, can I have a seconder first, and then you can, unless you're speaking to the way it was written. So seconder for that motion? Okay,
Sure.
Councillor Barron. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I just want to confirm this doesn't, there's no deferment in any tax received by the town. Is that a correct assumption?
I'll ask Claudia for our CFO, please, for a clarification on that.
Cole, that's correct. Actually, the survey of taxes would pay the property taxes, and these taxes would be deferred for the property owner only. So in other words, it's a kind of loan. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Okay. Any other questions on this? Councillor Mitchell, did you have a question? Oh, you just muted. You were unmuted. Sorry.
Sorry, that answered it for me. Thank you
Okay.
for the question, Derek.
Okay. So if there's no further questions, all those in favor of supporting the motion? Opposed? Carried. Great. Okay. Thank you. Next, we have reports 7A, the February and March 2020 financial department reports.
Move for receipt.
For receipt, seconder. Okay, any questions on those? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, March 2020 Harbor and Information Report. Move for receipt. Anybody else? Okay, Councillor Barron and Councillor Cole. Any questions on the Harbor Information Center report? Okay, seeing none, motion to, or all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Okay, so next we have our public consultation on the draft 5-year financial plan for 2020 to 2024 bylaw 697/2020. So this is a little unorthodox the way we were doing this today and injecting it into the middle. But this is the world we're in and the platform that we're using. So I would like to ask at this time if there are any questions from the public who are attending relative to the 5-year financial plan. And if I could ask you if there are any, if you could type it into the chat box, or if you would like to speak, Pete will open that up for you and ask you to keep your question to a minimum of 2 minutes. So I'm going to rely on you, Pete, here to help me out if there are any questions.
Yeah, I'm having a look. No hands up yet.
Okay, we'll give it another moment or two.
Oh, something just popped up. So from Lynn Wilson, what is entailed in the Beach Drive project as well as Hoy Bay?
Okay, so the Beach Drive project has to do with the area where there was the slide. And Councillor Cole, did you want to speak on the Hoy Bay project?
Yes, thank you. The town owns some property at the end of Beach Drive, and I think the thought there was some preliminary work done on surveying. If I had my way, an archaeological assessment of the area. But yeah, it's really not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but it's meant for planning, I think, is a fair assessment.
Yeah, I think that we felt that there would probably be some work that we could do even in light of COVID and where we're at. So that was the reason for that money that was budgeted. Was there another question? Thank you for that, Lynn. Okay, I'll ask one last time if there is any other questions from the public on the 5-year draft plan.
Oh,
Another question? Okay.
yep, one more question. In relation to wages and subsidies, will there be summer students hired?
I can speak briefly on that. So we haven't had I know that there's been a letter that's come in and some suggestions. We haven't had a real robust discussion on this, but we were waiting for staff to report back to us to find out logistically what would be possible for them to manage. And we have not heard yet about what student grant funding, or sorry, youth grant funding we've received. Is that correct, Pete?
That's correct. We have not heard word back whether we've received the grant funding we've applied for.
So staff is just currently assessing what areas that students could work in, and then they'll report back to council and we'll have that discussion as to where they would be able to work and what duties they could perform safely. Anybody else would like to chime in there, or does that capture what I believe that we discussed?
If I could just comment, we, even though we really would like to employ perhaps more of our returning students that we would have had in years past, the swimming pool and so on, we are constrained by the amount of tax dollars we can raise to do this. And so we're trying to be responsible and wait for that funding to come in before we commit to hiring more people.
Okay. Any further questions? No, go ahead, Councillor Downey, please.
More of a comment, and that is to sort of echo what we've heard, is that we do acknowledge that the jobs that we provide to students here at the town are a source of income for kids planning for their, for their future education, training, whichever the case may be. And so it is the intent of council to, we're hoping to secure the funds and hire as many students as we can and utilize them in a safe capacity within our town and within the public works or wherever the need best is served. So just a comment.
Were there any other questions from the public? Pete?
No, nothing further at this time.
Okay, and just to let people know that next we're going to be giving first and second reading, and there's certainly still opportunity for the public to ask any questions and give any input. So this won't be the only time. Okay. So under 8A, 5-year financial plan bylaw, could I have a motion for first and second reading, and then I'll turn it over to Claudia to speak with her report. Sorry, what are you smiling at? Did I miss something? First and second, okay. This is hard, not doing this in front of everybody. Okay, Claudia, was there anything you wanted to add to this, please? I see you've got a report, and so.
Kelly, did you have a question?
I have a comment, but so go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to make the mention that while we have in our records, it notes that we have a 2% increase to our tax revenue. And when looking on our budget, we have for our tax revenues come in at 1.501 versus 1.515 for 2019. So it's actually a reduction of about $14,000 compared to last year. So.
Just to speak to that, Councillor Downey, actually in the financial statements that you saw, that included the payments in lieu also. So, and in this budget, they are separated. So just to confirm that. So as I'm sure that I don't have too much to say. I mean, the report hopefully says most of what we've already discussed. But as we all know, moving forward, things are changing every day with COVID-19 and different from the ministry changing the school tax for classes 4, 5, and 6, and for changing the payment due dates for those classes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So all of those changes are meaning that most finance departments and municipalities are looking at what they're doing. And we're also looking at our cash flows and expecting, you know, how much money is going to be coming in, and where we can, I suppose, not have the, you know, change expenditures or have less, or just changing our anticipated expenditures and our revenues to kind of go with the flow of a changing time. So I really don't have too much more to say on that. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything.
Council, any questions for Claudia? Okay, seeing none then, all those in favor of first and second reading? Opposed, carried. Okay, thank you. Okay, new business. 10A is a senior boat launch discount. So this is coming forward as a community member had asked this question if it was able to be aligned with the senior discount that was available for mortgage. So move to discuss, or move to discuss. Councillor Barron, seconder, Councillor Downey. Okay, thoughts on this, council? Go ahead, Councillor Mitchell.
Well, being a senior citizen and on a fixed income, pretty much, and pretty much unaffected economically by everything that's going on around here, I don't think this is a necessary thing for us to do for our senior citizens at this time. I'm not saying that we might want to consider it, but it seems like it's being hung on the tail end of the COVID problem, and it doesn't fit there for me. So I don't see any basis for it.
Okay. And any other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Councillor Mitchell. I think any adjustments to the rates should be made as part of a proper business plan or business case at the harbor. So I don't support it at this time.
Okay. So we'll leave it at that. If there's not a motion on the table, there isn't to support this. Councillor Downey, go ahead.
I absolutely respect what Councillor Cole and Mitchell have said. However, there is an inequity that we do have within this bylaw, and that is that annual moorage gets a 20% discount, and yet we don't provide the same. There's no 20% discount for seniors who pull in and pull out instead of docking their boat. And we also know that getting moorage on a year-over-year basis is difficult as well, and not everybody has the kind of a vessel that is suited to be at the dock 12 months of the year. So I believe we need to look at this. Our rates are significantly lower than our competitor up in Port Hardy right now. So I would support, because of this inequity, I would support the 20% discount for a senior to align it with the launch, with the moorage that we are currently providing. However, I will say that we do need to look at all of our rates going forward. And we do need to ask the question whether that percentage of a discount is still warranted, given that we're trying to get our harbor to a position where it pays its way. We have a lot of seniors who do a lot of activities in this community, and not, some are boaters and some are hikers. Everybody does different things. So I think we have to be cognizant of that as well.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Mitchell.
I'd just like to refer to the report, and this report says, and I don't know who authorized the report because we didn't talk about it in council, but due to the recent financial impacts of COVID-19, the mayor's requested a bylaw amendment. So this whole thing is focused on COVID-19. So based on that, I can't support it. I totally agree with Councillor Downey that it makes sense to have an equitable policy, which maybe would be part of a rate review at the harbor, but I don't believe that this is it. Anyway, just want to point out
Okay.
that this report.
Okay, Councillor Barron?
Do we have the rates on a schedule for being reviewed?
I think it's in the overall plan of council to look at all of our rates and how to make the harbor more sustainable. Can I ask Pete or Claudia, what would be the not savings, I guess, what would be the loss to the town? Do we know how many seniors boat launch, seniors buy boat launch passes? Just out of curiosity. I should have asked this question ahead of time, sorry.
It's okay. I do believe I have it in the report. It's just a guesstimate because we don't actually ask age for the boat launch passes, but Lucas estimated about 25%. So out of 160 sold last year, 25% of that would be to seniors.
Go ahead, Councillor Coe.
Yeah, I just want to point out that, you know, a savings of $20 if you can afford to launch a boat. Like, you know, I don't even know why we're talking about this. And frankly, the whole report seems like a bit of a waste of staff time.
Okay. And I'll take responsibility for that. I should have asked the person who approached me to write a letter, as that's the way we usually do it. But anyway, I'll take responsibility for that. So go ahead, Councillor Downey.
I could motion that we pass this off to staff and to note it with our harbor review. Hopefully we can have something set in place for next year or have that conversation. As noted in the report, many of these launch passes have already been issued. So to retroactively go back and issue a check for $20, I don't believe that's good value for our staff time. So, but we do need to revisit this, I believe, just to make things equitable.
Okay. So I'll just make sure we captured that before I ask for a seconder.
Councillor Downey, could I get you to please repeat that?
Staff would revisit the senior discounts offered at the harbor for the boating season 2021.
Okay, can I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Barron. Okay, any further discussion on that? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you. All right. And next we have item 10B. So it's the tax penalty, tax due date, and tax sale. So I spoke earlier today with our CFO, Claudia, and this is just to solicit a preliminary discussion for us on where we go, acknowledging that this is changing almost every week. Claudia, would you like to just add anything on your report here?
Thank you, Mayor Wickstrom. Yes, a couple of things I'd like to talk about to council. So there has been some information come up this week, which is basically our software won't really handle, because right now we have the school taxes really aren't due till September the 30th for classes 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That being said, that would be, so if you have our taxes, if we have them due on July the 2nd and then have a penalty date, those classes wouldn't be penalized. And that would cause quite a bit of work. The actual software systems that are out there for all the municipalities, to my knowledge, won't handle that at this particular junction, right? So people have been going forward with the idea of saying, well, we want to keep our due date as July the 2nd because we do have taxes that are due. We have the regional district tax is $446,840, their requisition, and the regional hospital requisition is $103,379, and we have $15,585 to go to the BC Assessment Authority, and we also have not a large amount going to MFA. So, you know, with that being said, we have at least over $500,000 that needs to be paid out by August the 1st. Now we're in a fairly good position because we do have, the government has said we can borrow from our reserves, our statutory reserves, but they must be paid back. So any money that we take from a fund, it would have to come, when we receive the funds, would have to go back into that fund. But that being said, what my proposal is, and it's up to council what they decide to do, is to keep the July 2nd due date, and this is where it becomes tricky, and have a penalty date of August the 1st. And that's the penalty, and this would be considered an alternative tax scheme, which we could make this as part of our bylaw or a separate bylaw. But I have been told that we should be seeking legal advice on how it's written. So it needs to have an end date. It needs to have some clauses in it to just to protect the municipality. And even though it's kind of like a bonus, but the reason that you want to keep your July the 2nd due date is that way the mortgage companies would pay and people can pay. But we wouldn't give a penalty till September the 1st.
I mean, October 1st.
Sorry, yes, October 1st. That also means that we'd be looking at having the tax sale amended this year for 1 year. That would be because the tax sale is normally held on the last Monday of September. So obviously it's going to be before September the 30th, wherever that falls. So being that you couldn't really have a tax sale, people maybe haven't paid those property taxes by that date. People are in different minds over this. Some people feel that it would not be good for those people that do have delinquent, and we are looking at those people that have delinquent as of now, which means that they will have 2 years of delinquent, and the catch up might be a little harder for them. So my proposal would be that, you know, we administration would have to be contacting them, trying to get them to pay, making them aware of the situation that, you know, to try to pay those delinquent taxes so they're only ever in delinquent 1 year, not 2 years, if that makes sense. So that's really where we're going here, because this could very well be part, if you're going to do an alternative tax scheme, I believe it can be part of the bylaw, or it probably would have to be passed before the tax rate bylaw.
And when would this have to be done? Like, would we have time to ponder this until the next meeting that we have?
Well, I'm hoping to present the tax rate bylaw at the next meeting.
Okay.
So, I mean, we could have a special meeting to discuss this in between if council wants, but I would, because it will take time. The other part of this equation is we usually print on the tax forms, in the back of the tax forms, all this has to be printed. All this has to be noted, when the tax due date, when the penalty date is. You know, there's different sections that need to be printed on the tax notice itself. So that's a change, and that takes time. And we really like to try to have our tax notices out by somewhere around the May long weekend, even if it's just after that, but that's normally when we like to have them out.
Okay, before I take questions from council, I just wanted to say that this discussion did come up at that Zoom meeting, ABICC. So some of the councillors were saying that they were looking at reducing the penalty, but still making it so that people would want to pay, looking at hardship, and in particular, some of the communities that were affected by the strike as well. Because we've kind of got a double thing going here where people not only are affected by COVID, but they were affected by the strike also. So something to consider with the penalty. And I can't remember what the other thing was. So questions from council. Councillor Barron?
Campbell River put out a news release on the 22nd of April. And it looks like they're going with the July 1st with no, what do you call it, until October 1st. And it says they did it during a special meeting. However, they were going to consider more information and potential options at their next 2 meetings. So I wonder if we might be able to fall into to that.
Yeah, certainly we can have a special meeting to discuss this. It's interesting to me that Claudia mentioned too that we are asked to get, it's something that is put on us by the government because of this situation. It's the one area that's left out, and yet they're recommending that we seek legal advice, which I just find funny. Councillor Downey?
I see this as 2 issues that have been presented before us. So I wondered if we could maybe discuss the deferral of the property tax sale to the 3rd week of September 2021. I'd like to motion that we would consider that.
Okay, seconder for that motion. Okay, good. Discussion on the motion. Oh, did you? Yeah. I think that's fairly straightforward. Do we have to see that written up? I think Pete's got it. Go ahead, Councillor Mitchell.
Could you have the motion read back to me, please?
Yeah, he's just doing it now.
Okay.
Sorry, Mayor Wickstrom, may I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that you'd be better to do that for August. And the only reason I'm saying that, that's what other municipalities are doing, is they're revisiting the tax sale as of August. Yeah, and sometime in August, near the end of August, because that gives you a little bit more time.
August of 2021?
No, August of this year. So in other words, what Councillor Downey was saying was she wants to revisit this this August or this September. Was that correct, Councillor Downey?
No, I was suggesting that we move that we postpone the tax sale for the year 2020.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm my mistake.
And I think from the meetings that I've been attending on Thursdays, that's the way that they are leaning as well.
Yep, no, that's great.
Okay, so the motion to postpone tax sale until 2021, do we need a, when 2021? Is it September of 2021? Sorry, just a second, Councillor Cole. September, okay, we can add that. Before you ask your question, unless it's speaking to this motion made, can I have a seconder for the motion? Or did Councillor Barron already second it? Councillor Cole, okay. All right, questions, go ahead.
Just trying to get an idea of how many tax sales we have a year. You know, what kind of impact would this have? Claudia, please.
Okay, I wasn't here last year, but I believe that we had nothing to sell last year. So all delinquent. So basically the property owner pays the delinquent taxes. So that doesn't necessarily mean they have to have the current taxes paid or their arrears. So they have to be in owing taxes for 3 years at the time of the tax sale, which is delinquent. So this way, what we're basically doing is saying it would be 4 years. So the delinquent would be the 4th and the 3rd year of taxes owing. I think this, from my understanding from the administration is that they worked really hard last year to try to reach out to those tax or property owners to get them to pay their delinquent or arrear taxes, and it definitely worked. And that's the same that we would do this year. I mean, regardless, we're going to try to get people to pay because they are accruing interest too on those taxes, right? That's only, they'll get a penalty, but plus there's monthly or daily interest that charges. So we try to reach out to get them to pay or to look at payment plans, anything
Okay.
that we can do to help them.
So any further questions on the motion that's on the floor?
Could you read the motion out or maybe put it on the screen? That'd be great.
Okay, so the motion is to postpone the tax sale until September 2021. Okay, any questions on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Mitchell.
So we're going to postpone the tax sale, but taxes will be due July 1st as usual. So we're not really doing anything for anybody. So what's the point?
Well, I think the point is that Shelley had separated the two, so we'll deal with the other issue in a moment, but just talk about the tax issue first, the tax sale issue first, and then we'll be talking about this deferment and penalties. Correct, Councillor Downey? Was that your intention?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mayor Wickstrom, may I speak on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is something that we have to make a motion because the tax sale is part of the legislation. So I'm going to also look into, we might actually even have to do a bylaw for the year, but I know a resolution certainly at this time, it has to, if we are going to postpone it, we have to have a resolution by council to do so.
Okay. All right. So call the question. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Are you opposed or in favor? Okay, carried. Great. So now the second half, where we're looking at the penalty period. Claudia's suggestion of September 30th with an October 1st penalty of 10%. So how does council feel about the amount of penalty and deferring to that date? Councillor Downey, go ahead.
I just need some clarity. Is the issue that the software won't support it? Is it a legislative requirement? Is it a staff time? What is the overriding concern that staff have? Because when I first heard of this, I thought it was fairly straightforward. If I could just get clarity on that, please.
Certainly. So we can certainly leave it as a July. It's totally up to council. If you left it at the July 2nd date, then you're with the general scheme and you cannot change the penalty. The penalty would have to stay at 10%. So that means that if people do not pay their taxes by July the 2nd, the date's usually July the 2nd, it's the day after the holiday. So on July the 3rd, they get a 10% penalty, and that would be on, and it would be on residential utilities, supportive housing, we don't have any, and farm, we don't have any. Now for the other properties, there would be no 10% penalty. And that is on our portion of the taxes also. So in other words, on the municipal, on the regional district, that is my understanding. There would be, there's no penalties to be incurred, and their penalty date is October the 1st. So basically, classes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 don't have to pay their taxes till October the 30th.
So another suggestion is just that if taxpayers are looking at this, then it's in alignment with the business taxes that are getting a bit of a break as well. So a break for them and then a break for our residents, correct?
Correct. it also, we could certainly do it. So what would happen is if the property taxes are not paid July the 2nd, then on July the 3rd, the system will put in for a 10% penalty. And all that means is we'd have to go through all the classes that are 4, 5, 6, and 7 and we could do a miscellaneous and remove the penalty that would have been charged to them. That's what we would have to do. And then on October the 1st, there would be a 10% penalty if those properties weren't paid, but then we'd have to back out of all of the other ones that have already received a penalty. Does that kind of make sense to you now? Like on the classes, like that would be on class 1.
Councillor Downey?
So is the question then that we should be considering is, do we want to reduce the percentage of the penalty from 10% down to 5%, 2%, pick a number? Is that something we want to do? And do we want to push that date out for all of our taxpayers to September 30th? I see that as the question.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I wouldn't advise, okay, so most other municipalities that I've been speaking to, some of them are doing very elaborate alternate taxes. They're having different due dates, different penalties. But for simplicity's sake, I would say the reason that we want to stay with the July the 2nd due date, but then put the penalty to October the 1st, is because then we're going to get those people that normally would pay, like some people pay all year long. The banks will pay because that is the due date. The mortgage companies will pay. That's the ones we're really trying to target here. And you're right. So if the residentials don't pay, but if a third of our properties have a mortgage, then we're going to get at least a third of that income, which would be at this present time about, $500,000, right? Is what we're hoping for. Just a roundabout.
Councillor Mitchell?
I feel for myself that I need to see this on a piece of paper. I can't put all this information together and make a decision on something I hadn't thought of until 10 minutes ago. I need a little bit more detail on a piece of paper and then maybe a day or two to think about it. That's where I'm feeling I am. I'm happy to do something to give taxpayers a break, but all this technical data is way more than I can process without seeing anything in front of me. And I don't think that it's a good time to just make a decision on that. I know it's on the agenda, but there's no supporting information there. And so it makes it very difficult to make any preparation for this meeting because there's no data and I don't know what to do with this.
Well, I think that part of that is also for us just to hear what Claudia has to say. I don't think the decision has to be made tonight. We've got some time and we can have a special meeting if we need to. I'll just say for myself, I'm leaning towards having it align. I think residents will see that businesses are getting a little bit of help and changes for them. And given that we were in a strike and now this COVID epidemic, and I would also like to see us look at having a reduction in the penalty, maybe not, 1 or 2%, because the incentive, you want people to pay if they can, but definitely maybe something else. So that's where I'm leaning to, but I'm like you, I don't know if I'm prepared to make that decision this evening.
Oh yeah, I'm not against doing something. I feel like I'm being overwhelmed with information that I can't process. I need to see it on a piece of paper.
Yeah, fair enough.
A report, I guess. So that would help me.
Yeah. Councillor Cole?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I don't know if Councillor Mitchell saw, but there is what I feel is a really good report that explains it really well from Claudia here.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think the information's here, but just wanted to make sure, I guess, clarify, is he looking for more information than what's on this report, or maybe
What am I missing? I don't see a report. Maybe I don't.
It's page 50. It's on page 53 of our agenda.
Page 53?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I got page 47. That's where mine stops. Okay.
Okay,
I guess I have it then. I'll read it. I'll find it in my email and I'll go through it and I'll be ready to make a deal next meeting.
Claudia, is this something that you feel we'll need to have a special meeting before the next one to discuss, or is it something that we can cover within that meeting?
It would probably better to have it before that meeting. And the reason I'm saying that is when we're looking at doing an alternative tax scale scheme, oh goodness,
We know what you
alternative
mean.
tax sale scheme. I would, everybody, and this is from local government themselves to the Government Finance Association to other municipalities. I spoke to the CFO of Comox, and they are having their bylaw, their alternative tax bylaw being reviewed. They're looking at going with the, saying a due date of July the 2nd, a penalty date of October the 1st. And they're looking at that, having that reviewed by a lawyer, having legal advice on that and their clauses. So that is the advice that I've been given. So we're going to need time to do that. That's my concern. I mean, I know there are some that haven't done it, but I would err on the side of caution of that one. And I would think it's better to have it reviewed by get some legal advice on maybe some clauses that should be in that bylaw.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Then we'll plan on having a special meeting just to cover that. Okay, on to, sorry, were there any other questions before I go on to the next one? Oh, okay, on to 10C, council reports. Did anybody have anything verbal to report? Councilor Van?
I did speak with James Spurney about the museum, and we're going to get together towards the end of this week. So I'll update council on how that goes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to report that Vancouver Island Regional Library is back to having regular executive meetings and regular board meetings through Zoom. We had our first full board meeting with 38 board members plus staff. It was a little challenging in the beginning, but we made it through. So we're back meeting as regularly as we can. Anybody else?
We had our first tourism advisory meeting was held by Zoom on April 16th as well. And I believe there'll be some minutes coming forward, which will get distributed to council. Just some high level things. The video project has been set aside until it's practical to do such a project. The MRDT tactical plan, most of the ideas in there are on hold. However, the committee wishes to go through the plan and pull out, extrapolate out of there the stuff that was specific to Port McNeill and revisit what may be possible. We have a website liaison who will coordinate with Array regarding the tourism website or our information website. And we had a discussion around short-term vacation rental, and I believe there'll be a document coming forward from the committee on that topic specifically. And, yeah, that's just some of the high-level thoughts that were held there. They also attended a tourism meeting with Tourism Vancouver Island. It was a webinar actually on April 21st. They have over 180 businesses that are registered. And best I can tell, it's a resiliency program. So they're just offering services to businesses, tourism operators, to help them get through this time. They're offering resources, whether it's HR or finance advice. They've got a kind of a basket of skill sets that they're making available to tourism operators. It was quite a short meeting, but that's kind of what it was about in a nutshell.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Item 11A, items from in camera to be made public. So the 2019 draft financial statements were presented just previous to this at a special meeting where we went in camera by Jan Sadden Boats, and then it was presented in the regular meeting here. So that's all that's to come out from in camera. But I do need a motion to go in camera under Section 91 Labor Relations. Anybody? Moved by Councillor Barron, Councillor Downey. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so questions from the public first.
No questions from Bill McCory.
Okay. All right, so any questions from the public?
I see none.
Okay, so motion to adjourn and to go in camera. Moved, seconded, all in favor, opposed, carried. So we will be leaving this and then logging back in through another Zoom. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, we will see you shortly. Thank you, everybody.